My name is Molly Googler. I'm the college archivist, and I'm very happy today to be interviewing Ed Branson, the founding art faculty member here at the college. He's had a long, illustrious career here, and we've got lots of things to talk about. Could we start, Ed, by having you tell us about your background before you came to Yavapai College and how you ended up being a founding faculty member here?
Okay, I'm actually sort of a Colorado, Arizona, California person. I was born in Peonia, Colorado, and when I was 3 years old, we came to Arizona. My brother had asthma, so that was the best move for him. And then we moved back to Colorado during my junior and senior school years. And then after high school, I joined the Navy. And I was in personnel work at that time. And after discharge, I stayed in the Naval Reserve and attended San Bernardino Valley College. And at that time, I was a business major. And my second year, I married my high school sweetheart, finished my degree there in Associate of Art in Business Administration. But then I decided to take a radical change and change my major to art. And this is primarily because of the influence of humanities classes, Dr. Moore. We had small sections and large lectures, and in California they were able to bring in some pretty neat people in the humanities, the arts and music and what have you. And then I showed films for the art department because I was working for the audiovisual department. In those days it was reel-to-reel, so you had to stay with the film. And one time I didn't, and it was all over the floor when I came back. But the good news was I got to see all the films. And Hilda Moll was a one art department lady, and she took an interest in me. And whenever she had field trips in the LA area, I'd tag along. I never was able to take an art class from her, but those influences were very strong, enough for me to really commit my life to the arts. But then arrived at San Diego State, and it was really a very hard struggle for me, to get into the arts because it had its own language. All of the techniques and methods were totally unknown to me, and because of that, though, the good side of that, I think it made me more sensitive and more, compassionate to students and understanding where the student really was in their art development, and then I was very much committed to techniques and methods. The joy I've received from that is seeing students and accomplish things that they hadn't thought they ever could really do, especially in drawing. You talked about your experience with drawing, and I had this thing where there isn't anybody I couldn't teach to draw because it's just learning how to see, learning all the complexities of our vision, and once you kind of work through that and the different visual bases that people have, as far as designer, drawing, or draftsman, or colorist, then in even understanding that, I was able to identify with a variety of students, not just those that fit my own visual preference. So this type of accomplishment then were the building blocks for students that then could be life goals, life things, that they could apply to other things. So it wasn't the subject as much as just giving life skills. Okay, so much for those influences that really changed my life. But then I went to San Diego State College in San Diego and earned a bachelor's degree in art education. And my first teaching job was at Redlands High School in Redlands, California. And that was probably in my mind, one of the nicest high schools in California. It had big, huge front lawns and great big trees. And the worst thing was the auditorium was a WPA project, but still, it was just a very nice place to work. And I was hired to develop a crafts program there. And then in time, the ceramics became a large part of that program. And my interest in ceramics actually really grew because of being mentored by a man by the name of Henry Takamoto at Claremont Graduate School. And he really helped me to fall in love with clay and what it's about and the poetry of the movement of the wheel and things like that. But I received my master's in art at Claremont Graduate School in drawing instead of ceramics, because that was really my strength. Now, how I happened to come to Yavapai College is kind of an interesting thing, because I just finished my master's degree, and I was interested in the possibility of a small college, but not knowing where. Actually, I had been hired at California Baptist College in Riverside, but I couldn't work the finances. You know, it's a private school, and so that was whetting my appetite for the college. But my parents had retired to Cottonwood. My cousin, actually the cousin that his parents I stayed with when I was going to San Bernardino Valley College, had a little 5 and dime store, Rasco store in town, and on across Cortez Street. And at that time, the administrative offices were across the street in that professional building. And so Dr. Ray Cleveland would come over and purchase office supplies from my cousin Joe Harrison. And so Joe set up an appointment for me with Dr. Cleveland. And on one of my trips over, then I was able to go up and visit with him. And of course, just finishing my MA put me eligible for that possibility. And actually, community colleges had a special interest for me because it's kind of a practical thing, but because of tax base. I taught in a bedroom community. The tax base was very difficult to work, you know, in a bedroom community. And certainly a community college has a county tax base. So I really thought that I'd be able to build a larger and better program in this type of environment. And so I had this interview with Dr. Cleveland, and he informed me that they were looking at a lady that had just graduated from Arizona State University. And so I thought maybe my opportunities were not great. But I get home, and I received this letter asking me if I was willing to relocate. Now, if you can imagine getting a letter like that, it's like,
it wasn't offering you a job. It was just saying,
are you willing to relocate? But you know, I'd rather have an offer of a job. But at that time, the process was that candidates had to interview with the president of the college, Dr. Barnes. So that's about as far as you could go in terms of, you know, would you come and, you know, interview with the president of the college and be willing to relocate? Well, after this, I was offered the job, and the funny thing, it was contingent upon sufficient funds. So I think, oh man, what am I getting into?
Right.
So it's not a most exciting way to accept the job, but I went for it. But during that time, and probably one of the reasons that Dr. Cleveland maybe took a liking to me is that, you know, I'd had the experience of building a program at the high school level, and it became very successful, and probably would have still been there, but it's just, you know, you always want to do bigger and better things. But Arizona at that time was a very exciting place to be in the latter 60s and early 70s, because the universities had just built new art facilities and buildings. Scottsdale and Sedona were starting to come alive. The Phoenix Art Museum was becoming a very strong museum in the West, in the small museum category, because of people from you know, New York and other places wintering in Phoenix during the summer, and they took a love for the museum, and actually a lot of the major pieces there came during that time. From these folks that really fell in love with the Valley and the museum. And then the Arizona Commission on Arts and Humanities was coming alive and was being funded with state funds, and was able to eventually do a lot of things for us as far as art and architecture projects and other things. So it was really an exciting time. And so I was thrilled to be able to do this. I just thought, man, there's so many neat things about this that I just got to do it. And so that's kind of how that all came together as far as becoming a founding member.
Well, I find it interesting that you said you were interested in a community college because of the tax base. That lets me know that you're a very practical person besides an artist.
Maybe that business major, I don't know.
Maybe so. I never would have thought of that. but that's...
Well, I had hit walls in the high school level where I just couldn't go any further because there just wasn't the funds. And then also at the high school, when I came there, athletics was a big power. And during that time, agriculture, the ag program, and they were good. I didn't envy it all, even though I did copy the athletic methods of becoming famous by art shows in L.A. and New York, and most of the principals were ex-athletic jocks and what-have coaches, and so they responded to publicity. And art is an easy thing to get publicity off of, and the students used to go out and dump all their artwork in the trash can, and so I had to change that. So we started having shows and having them map and frame their stuff and just kind of put it on the map. And so it wasn't it was a wonderful time in my life, and I enjoyed it very much. But actually, everything that happened here could have happened at that high school if we'd had the tax base. My philosophy about age of students is, when I was in the Navy, you'd have a 17-year-old kid in up with the captain of a carrier being a phone talker, and I thought, we just don't really give high school students credit for what they could do. They treat them like little kids. And I didn't do that, and it proved successful. And that's one thing I missed when I came here, but I had other things that were just as valuable, I guess. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you ended up here. I often try to imagine what it was like when the college first started. I mean, no programs are in place, new faculty, new administrators. What was it like here when it first started, the atmosphere?
Well, one of the good things is when you don't know any better, everything's okay. I didn't come from really outstanding university or college facilities or anything like that, and so I just and I think part of the charm of the folks that came in, we'll be talking about later, is that they were able to grow something. But when the college facilities here were way behind because of heavy rains. I don't know. I'm sure you've kind of maybe discovered that. And they had to put the concrete bases way down the ground because of the composition of the soil here, and it just was raining, and they were sogged down. In fact, I think probably couldn't even move equipment. It was so messed up.
Wow.
And so it was way behind. So when the college began, classes were all over town. We called it the Berkeley University, where you had it's huge. Because of things all over the place, and we had classes at the high school. We had classes at the VA Center. The bookstore was located on the block down where the downtown parking garage is. I began teaching art in what was called the Boys Club room. It was kind of a shop room. It was located in the abandoned high school and junior high school, which is in a school warehouse. And the Boys Club, I think, rented the bottom part of that. In fact, Lynn Merritt taught PE in the gym, what was left of the gym. And then I taught humanities across the street in the basement of the Congregational Church.
Now, you taught humanities?
Well, I was going to teach art history, and it didn't make it, so I taught humanities.
Oh.
Which is fine. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And
then the thing that was kind of neat is I'd walk down to the plaza, the courthouse plaza, and have my lunch down there, and it was just a very leisure, wonderful time. That wasn't going to last. But anyway, I took advantage of it. The first students, on the most part, were women, and a lot of them had taken workshops in art at the Cobweb Hall Art Gallery in town. And it was a gallery and art supply store, and it was run by Dick and Beth Jorgensen. So I really credit them for starting the college, because I had a built-in group of students that just came right over to me. I didn't have to go out and beat the walls and shake the bushes to get students. I mean, in terms of folks that had already been in art and were excited about art and really want to take art. Then later we moved out to the VA Center. I was in the first building on the left as you enter the VA Medical Center. And a lot of classes were already there. Mekalevich had his journalism class out there. English classes started there, and a lot of classes had started at that particular building because it had been vacant. And so this is where I started ceramics, and then I was teaching the usual classes of painting, drawing, design, and art appreciation. And the one thing, I think you asked about how it was with faculty and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's small faculty. Most of them were young.
Mm-hmm.
We have young kids. We had kids about the same age. And so the administration and the faculty would have potluck dinners around Christmas and holidays, and it's just kind of a neat time because of everybody was starting stuff and had some of the same excitement. And
you said you had some classes in the boys' club.
That started, and then when the top buildings up here where we're sitting right now in Building 3
mm-hmm.
and 2 first were opened, 3 and 4. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 and 4
mm-hmm.
were not open yet. In fact, part of this building was not open. So some of the classes moved over here and vacated some space so I could move out to the VA from the old building downtown.
Did you have to move equipment from the boys' club out to the VA?
I didn't have much equipment.
Okay.
Picked up my pencils and papers and moved there. And then I began to get ceramics and other things at the VA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good pulling. Now, as far as relationship with administration, it's kind of interesting because I spent a lot of time negotiating for equipment and materials, and in those days we didn't have a defined budget, and I had no idea if any money was available to me. I just had to come crying on my knees and say, I'd like to do this. And Dr. Russo was a part of that. And I would have liked to have had a budget. I would like to have had some parameters that I could work with. The years I had a lot of fun with Dr. Russo because we kind of enjoy parring a little bit. We enjoy
mm-hmm.
the kind of that push and give and stuff, and so we became good friends, I think, because of that. And even later on, after he retired, accompanied me field trips down to the Phoenix Art Museum, and once we went out to lunch, we didn't talk art or anything.
Great.
I wasn't after anything. We just went out to lunch and just had a good time. So,
mm-hmm.
so Dr. Russo had a good heart.
Well, that's great. So when the classes first started, was there a program already laid out for you, or how was it determined what was going to be taught?
I had a lot of freedom. That was really cool. But one of the things, I talked about, I was just very naive and didn't have a clue about things, and that was probably the good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't expect anything. I didn't come here expecting other people to do stuff for me.
Mm-hmm.
Some people did, and nothing ever happened. So I didn't know about teaching loads, because coming from the high school environment, those things didn't exist. So I just taught all the art classes I could in a week. Because I was, the purpose was to build an art program, and it was up to me what classes were offered in art. And then with the help of part-time art teachers, a couple of which became full-time, Vince Kelly and Elaine Farrar,
mm-hmm.
I just began to build the art department, and with a number of different art classes being offered. In those days, in the early 70s actually, art was very popular, especially
mm-hmm.
the crafts. And several students, some from Cobweb Hall group that came over, who had experience in weaving or stitchery or whatever, they began to teach for us part-time. At one time we had as many as 25 part-time teachers in
Wow.
art. And we became the big power group here because we were bigger than any other division or department.
Uh-huh.
Not really, but...
Well, actually, that's one of the reasons I really wanted to interview you, because it just seemed like the art program was just going great guns, and so many different venues and art forms going on that...
it's amazing. We couldn't lose. Anything we'd open, if we had an instructor, it'd fill. It'd just fill.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of fun. And it was, I think some of the other departments might have been a little frustrated with that because they were building programs too and what have you. especially your academic area, it's a little slower, and there wasn't this whole community just saying, all right, I got to take an art class. But I was able to, get 5 full-time art faculty eventually, which we'll be talking about in a minute.
Well, art is so visual. I mean, if somebody writes a good paper in their English class, that's all well and good, but that's not going to go probably beyond the instructor and the student. But if you have a student taking ceramics or drawing or painting,
right,
they're going to be producing stuff,
In fact, I often thought if I taught English or history or something, because we would have a celebration at the end of the semester, put the work up, celebrate the semester, I would have to do that if I was teaching English or anything. It's just too bad for that stuff to die. And my experience in English was not all that great. A lot of red pencil circles and things like that. And you can go past that in the arts, and it's a good stuff for people to gain confidence so they can hit the road running. I think it had a lot of good things besides just making stuff.
Well, I think you've touched on this question already.
Art grows.
What role did you have in the development of the art program? It sounded like you
Well,
just said, come on, bud, everybody, come on in.
Well, I have a couple of comments I can make about that, though, because the wonderful thing about being a founding faculty member, as I said, it just kind of like we lined up, the administration shot the gun, we just took off to build programs. And maybe one of the reasons why I was hired is, I was able to develop a crafts program at the high school level. But, I was able to hire the beginning 5 faculty. And those members stayed on until they retired, after doing outstanding programs in their own areas of interest and expertise. So in terms of growing the building, it wasn't me. It's just I was able to handpick some really choice people. And what you see today is because of folks like Elaine Farrar in printmaking, oil printmaking, and oil painting and watercolor, and Vince Kelly ceramics, glass blowing, photography, division head Dick Markison, jewelry, wood, sculpture. He was instrumental in creating the art gallery, the current art gallery, along with Vince Kelly and the sculpture garden, which a lot of people, I thought about when we had that Founders Day luncheon, that he ought to stand up and ought to applaud him for the beauty of the sculpture garden and for things that he's contributed in sculpture pieces around campus that he was instrumental in. And Dick is still active in Friends of the Art Department. And of course, Glenn Peterson was able to develop one of the best commercial art graphic design programs in the state, as well as the art history program. So, we all kind of took our turn in division chairmanship. But one thing about being a founding faculty member, as far as growing or classes that I offered, is I was able to always teach the classes that I loved. And I didn't have to come in second guy on the block and have to negotiate. So I always taught the classes I loved, which was drawing, watercolor, art appreciation, and ceramics. So, and then another thing in terms of growing, which was kind of interesting, along with what I talked about, some of the local people that had expertise in different areas, is that actually a student of mine, when I student taught in El Cajon, California, I kind of kept in touch, and he got his degree. And he came here and taught sculpture part-time for a while for us. And then a high school student from Redlands came and taught weaving and natural fabric dyes. And the guy from my student teaching days was Dan Yaris, and then Kathy Hargrave came and was instrumental in giving a little push to some of the weaving programs. Along with
I took classes. I took weaving classes. I already knew how to weave, but just being in a class environment is stimulating. Sure. It's fine to do your artwork at home, but to be in a group setting, it's just a different experience. So I remember taking spinning from her.
From Kathy Hargrave?
Kathy Hargrave.
Really?
Yeah, spinning
and
dyeing.
She went up to Washington, I think, after she left here. I would have loved to have those people come on full time, but after I got my 5, the door closed, which is, even Alice Leffingwell would have been nice to have had her come in, but they were they contributed an awful lot to the college development and growth.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good art instructors. What were some of the challenges you faced as head of the art department?
Well, just the discussion we've had so far, you can tell the art department was very, had very ambitious needs in terms of equipment and space, and then really were available to us. And we moved around a lot. That would be another interview almost in itself. Places, especially like where my office was. And usually they were very inadequate spaces. Dick Markison had to actually build jewelry stations for his students, and a lot of the tools and what have you. When he moved into Building 5, he had to work out all the electrical for his power tools. So you can just kind of get the feeling that if it wasn't for these guys' determination to make something work, it just wouldn't have happened. The school wasn't just there with all this stuff ready for us. And as you can tell in the spaces that we kind of occupy.
Well, do you think that the administration was just unaware of what you needed, or the money wasn't there?
Well, it's money, I'm sure, and it depends on which way the board sways. With Baghdad, there was a lot of interest in, diesel and welding and other kinds of things, and just so many dollars. And then, of course, the Verde began to develop and needed funds. So, you split a dollar so many times, and you don't have much left. And of course, Vince Kelly, he had to build kilns to keep equipment up, and build stations for glass blowing and ceramics. Elaine Farrar created the printmaking spaces, and purchased all the things that's involved in that. Glenn Peterson created the graphic design spaces. And as an art department head in the beginning, especially, there was a lot of challenges just in scheduling classes, trying to find classrooms and supplies and even teachers. And but a lot of those course needs came from the community. And fortunately, some of them were offered. The courses were offered by people in the community that had already expertise in different areas. In those days, you didn't have to have a master's degree. If you had a certain amount of experience, and you could get credentialed.
Oh.
And so we used a lot of people without master's degrees. I think now they don't even want you on campus without a master's degree. And that's kind of too bad. Because like Red Levangie taught our primitive firing and what have you, and she'd been, she's just a rough-going lady, probably would be good for a truck driver. And she was taking my ceramics classes, had all these interests, and she went to New Mexico and studied under a guy on primitive firing, so she was able to teach in those areas. So that was part of the joy, I guess, is just seeing people be able to come alive in their area of expertise, and that certainly helped the program grow, but it gave me a lot of challenges in trying to get those things to fit. And of course, one of the examples, Stitcher was also taught by Claire Franks and weaving by Jeannie Gibbons, and they were beginning students of mine when we started over in the Boys Club. So it hadn't been for determination of this beginning art faculty to take the challenge of building their own programs, the art department wouldn't be where it is today. So for me, I think that the area that I really feel blessed in was being able to find some people, handpick them, and then stand out of their way. Because you just can't beat those 5 people, what they're able to do.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you were incredibly busy. Did you have any opportunity to hold any other positions at the college? Well,
I was at one time faculty advisor for students, and I spent some time as kind of the art gallery facilitator and division chairman, of course art department chairman, which I don't know what that meant then. It just, you had an art department to deal with. And I scheduled trips to Los Angeles Art Museum and theaters, got all that going. Basically, that spun off of a teacher I taught with at Redlands High School who did the same trips. And so I just fell in and did the same scheduling and what have you that he did. I was president of Arizona Art Education Association for a while, faculty advisor for Campus Crusade for Christ, and before Elaine took over the art club, I sponsored the art club. So it's all part of making things come alive, I guess.
Yeah. I'm very interested in hearing about the development of the student art shows and sales, and it's probably just because I happen to participate in one or two of them myself, but I thought that they were just a really nice feature to have on campus, that the students had an opportunity to put their things on display, sell them if they wanted to. Do you remember how this all got going, and how did the art students respond to this?
Well, actually, to me, an art gallery or showing artwork is just as important as a performance hall for theater and music, or for athletic fields and gyms for athletics. And a lot of people don't understand that. And so it started at the beginning of the college. I mean, as soon as we opened the doors and had a semester, we had an art show, just like that. I mean, it's what you're supposed to do. And so the locations have been, all over the place. And then of course that space also had other shows that could come in, as well as the annual and semester student shows. We started, I don't know if you know where the Keykefer office building is downtown, across from Elks. But Barbara Polk's husband worked there, and Barbara Polk was involved in a lot of things with us. And so they had an empty office space, and so we started our gallery there. Any empty classrooms we've used in Building 2. At the old boys club, which is out where the YMCA is now, we had exhibits out there. The old National Guard Armory, we had exhibits, especially in the retirement college with Alice Leffingwell setting them up. So the art gallery spaces then were built in the library, Building 2, Building 3, Rush Street, which used to be a motorcycle showroom before the was purchased by the foundation. So it was just a given. You just got to do that, in my mind. And in fact, I feel that all art schools, elementary all the way up, should have a place to exhibit and show artwork. And unfortunately, the other community colleges, sometimes the so-called galleries are in the student union. So you're looking at paintings over, people lounging on a couch reading, and it just doesn't feel the same. And so we didn't go that route. We didn't want to cooperate with student union buildings and libraries and things like that. We wanted designated spaces for showing art. And then, of course, work has always been for sale if a student wanted to sell it, so no problem there. And then, of course, Elaine Farrar, when she had the art club would purchase student work for the college, and unfortunately a lot of that is kind of, it used to be accountable quite a bit, but and I think the art club took some of it back, sold it for some money so they could do their art trips. And at one time the retirement college shows were separate, and that's when Alice Leffingwell, operated that. She was kind of a retirement college spokesperson in the art. But today there's no separation between retirement college students and regular college students. And as far as response from the art students or the public, I really believe that the popularity and the growth of the art program was in part because of community people seeing students' accomplishments on display. We'd receive excellent publicity. And in fact, when the college first started, we were a new kid on the block, and the courier was out here for everything. Of course, the art things were much more publishable. And so it placed a desire, I think, on a lot of people's part to give art a try. And students always, get from the exhibits the same pleasure, I think, that, music and theater students get from their productions. And so I think it's just an essential part of the growth and development of students and their accomplishment to have places to show and galleries. So it's just a given. It's just part of my. In fact, at the high school, it's kind of interesting. I really worked to try to get a gallery, and it's kind of unheard of in high schools to have art galleries. You can have performing hall and things like that. And so I went back and did a workshop, I think the year before I retired, and a guy that was student teaching before I left came on full time, and they built a new high school. And so by the library, there was a nice big vacant room, and it became an art gallery.
Oh,
and I was able to show in their first show. so,
great.
so that you can obviously that's a big important thing for me is that place to show.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't just put it in a trash can and leave. You know, they give it some credence, give it some importance. And actually, a guy, David Lash, over at English Union High School, had that same philosophy, and his students were selling in galleries and all kinds of stuff. Just amazing what his students were doing just because of that same philosophy of the importance of art. And you don't get that unless you got a place to show it and exhibit it and give it importance.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with that, yeah.
I know, I was really excited when I participated in the few student art shows that I did. I mean, and I kind of hung around because I wanted to hear what people said.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so, I don't know if you want to say fulfilling or whatever, but it was just very rewarding to hear people's positive responses.
Yeah, my only disappointment is that we never could really put up as much art as I would like to. You know, Dick Marcus and Vince Kelly had kind of a philosophy of really a pristine gallery of importance, and so that's why sometimes we had shows at the Old Armory and other places where you just stacked the work in there. But my experiences in art shows at San Diego State were not too wonderful. This instructor wanted me to put a piece in their annual show, and so I took it in there, and it would be out in the hall, and I'd take it back in, it would be out in the hall, and finally I just took it home. so I didn't fare real well in the art exhibit realm.
Well, one of the things that the library has started doing in the last several years, geez, it's probably been about 6 years now, the student shows at the end of the semester are juried, and there would be an incredible amount of artwork that wouldn't make it into the show. And the students would just be expressing a lot of dismay.
It's frustrating.
And so Cindy DeCecco approached the library and said, hey, it seems like the judges were really looking for two-dimensional art this year, and my sculpture students just didn't make it. Can we put our stuff in the library? And we were thrilled. We said yes. And so every semester now.
Yeah, I kept trying to figure out a way to have almost two exhibits. You know, your kind of Cadillac one and then this others. But, you know, jurying shows is frustrating. I don't even jury shows anymore. I just don't feel I have competence to say no and yes, especially in an environment where an awful lot of good stuff just can't make it because you don't have wall space. And a lot of students don't know that, so they're crushed when their piece doesn't make it because, you know, they put a lot of energy into it. The instructor was excited, said, you know, you got to put it in the show, and then it doesn't make it. And so we got into having the judges make comments. I don't know if they still do that anymore, you know, on a tape. Elaine Farrar was instrumental in some of that. Just to help students bridge that. And I used to talk to my class an awful lot about, as an example, one student had a really super piece. And so she started entering it in shows in the valley and around different places. And in the 4 or 5 shows that she attempted to get into, she had best of show, first place, honorable mention, rejection. Not in that order, but you know. So here, what does all that mean? Well, students can use it on their portfolios and their resumes, you know. So there are some good things about it, but I have little reservations about juried shows other than some of their purposefulness, and then you need to let students know about that. Otherwise they get crushed.
Did the art program ever collaborate on projects with other departments on campus?
You know, that was, let's see, I got to find my notes here. I'm going to catch up here, but you know, the distant delivery program, I don't know if you remember that. I think Wayne Newton was involved in some of that. So that was a college activity that the art department was involved in, distant delivery courses off campus. The audiovisual department, filming local artists, workshops offered at college, filming those, would be, you know, collaborating with other departments. When we did our LA trips, Los Angeles trips, we offered the bus was open to all college students and departments.
Mm-hmm.
I taught a how to be creative section to the new student orientation course, which was a lot of fun because you'd go in and say, is anybody creative? And they'd go, no. And then you'd just start talking about how unique the person was and nobody else like you, and pretty soon, they begin to see, well, hey, maybe there's a chance here. So that was collaboration in the, what those courses are for new students, orientation classes. I used to use slides from biology department in my art appreciation to help understand other visual excitement that may be part of abstract art rather than visually recognized art. Dick Markson team taught art welding with the regular welding courses. Vince Kelly was involved in a lot of computer programming and almost moved completely out of the art department into computers. Glenn Peterson and the design services created a lot of the images for events, going on around campus.
Mm-hmm.
The collaborated with the English department on art and literature and poems and what have you, so that was a cooperation between those departments. And then the art student scholarships came from Art Club, the Friends, local organizations. So that's kind of outside the campus. Even the Friends established the Peterson, Marks, and Branson Scholarship, which is kind of was really, for me was really really neat to have that recognition. And I'm sure there's a lot of other areas where we rub shoulders with other departments, but those are probably the most that I can remember right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we had a lot of interaction with a lot of the departments.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Could you tell us, Ed, what changes you saw in the student population over time?
Well, that's been an interesting phenomenon because in the beginning, we really didn't get high school students. And part of the reason is that local graduates wanted to go somewhere else, as probably all of us wanted to do, leave town. And there was this kind of image of Yavapai College being a high school of ashtrays. I don't know where that all came from, but you'd hear that once in a while. And our students, for the most part, were housewives whose kids were finally in school, or older students that always wanted to take art and just had to work and finally got some time. And actually women, I think, made up a large portion of the art student population. And as college became known around the state and even the nation, national-wide, we had a student from New York come one time because he looked at the catalog and there's glass blowing. He never took glass blowing, but he said, it's got to be a neat place to have all these courses, so he came here. And so these things attracted, students here because we had this diverse offering of art classes. And so that was my dream. I didn't want people to come and have to take everything from Ed Branson. That'd get a little boring for me and them too. So it's kind of nice to have that cadre of courses and people.
Mm-hmm.
And we often got students from Prescott College and Embry-Riddle University because they didn't have art programs. And since the college has moved into this kind of lifelong learning mode, a lot of times students have just stuck it out, stayed with us. They like you're saying, the classroom, the interaction with other students, and so that's kind of a population of students that have kept the strength and growth of the art program. And during the time I was here, there wasn't a lot of art students that were right out of high school, although I did have some high school students that followed me from Redlands High School. And I found out that Dr. Russo was giving the athletic program out-of-state tuition waivers. So I said, I would like to get some out-of-state tuition waivers. And so probably half a dozen students that graduated when I came over here came from Redlands High School and attended here. And so that was a student population from high school. That was kind of unique, I think. And so I say that there wasn't that many high school students per se, but as economic conditions came around and students, it wasn't as easy for them to leave town in terms of monetary conditions, so a few more students hung around. And then we began to create some really good art scholarships from a variety of sources, and so that dollar amount was much more exciting for for high school students to apply for, as well as continuing students. Mm-hmm. And then creating partnership with NAU and other universities and so on. People can stay here and complete most of the degrees. Part of the problem, too, is that transfer students were not able to take a lot of art because of general studies. I pretty much filled those first 2 years. Mm-hmm. One good thing, though, is the universities have really always cooperated with us in allowing a lot more art classes to transfer than would probably be normal. So, so they were on our side. But that's probably why a lot of the extra classes, rather than your drawing and your core classes for transferring to university, became strong, was because of community people. They really made that happen.
That's great. Were there any activities outside of the classroom that the art program supported to foster students' appreciation of art?
Like I said, when I was on the high school level and kids would go out the classroom at the end of the semester and their work would go in the trash can, I just thought, we've got to have something more than the classroom. And so that philosophy came with me to Prescott. And at the beginning, as a recruiting device, I found out about the Mesa Art League was having a Tri-City, in the Tri-City Mall was having a big art event. Mesa Community College had some people participating. There's like maybe 300. I don't know, I have a little newspaper clipping I'll be giving you, but it was kind of a big event, and I thought, hey, that would be really cool, and maybe we'd get some students out of it. We didn't really, but the art department had a great time at the shopping center entertaining the public, and we hauled potter's wheels down and weaving equipment, and we spent the whole day, and the rest of them were there a whole week. Also, I demonstrated the potter's wheel at different events around town and at the square, and the movement of the wheel and all that always pulls people in, and that became, and then a lot of times students would join in on that, and so that would help the outside people begin to get appreciation, as well as the students had another venue for being excited about what they could demonstrate. The art field trips to Phoenix Art Museum, Heard Museum in Phoenix, Los Angeles County Art Museum, Pasadena Art Museum, Huntington Museum, Botanical Gardens, theater productions in LA, visiting artist workshops. All these, I think, contribute to students getting excited and appreciated about art outside the classroom walls. The campus art exhibits, we encourage them to join local art associations, and they've exhibited around the state in some national shows. We had the Michigan Art Train come here. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but the Arizona Commission on the Arts and Humanities saw us as a little out in the sticks college, which is nice because we were able to get some plums coming in. The Michigan Art Train was actually a train with several cars that were actually like a museum. And they had mirrors so that when you walked down this little train aisle, it looked like you was in a big old museum almost. And they had really some outstanding art pieces in it, and then they had a couple of cars where you could do demonstrations. And it's probably the last big event down at the railroad station before actually the train master, or what do they call him, when he retired, they were just keeping it kind of alive for him. And when he retired, they didn't know what was going to happen, and then they had some big rains that washed out some of the tracks, so that ended the railroad program. But we were able to bring the train in, and the whole art department went down to the train station, and we just had a ball. So that certainly would foster another part of their appreciation. And then, of course, the whole thing, LA was parroting and being mentored by the guy I taught with at Redlands High School. And then we had the art and architecture workshops conducted by Charles Clements, and that was an Arizona Commission-sponsored program. Started real low budget, caught on. We did it for several years. And a lot of the sculpture pieces, some are gone, some are still here. We had murals all over the walls.
I remember those.
And they were all done by students. Charles Clement had done this at a university level. He'd come to Tucson for himself from New York, Powerfully energetic little guy, and he probably set more students on fire for art than any of us could have ever done, just because of, and the community. Our first project, we had people, we had needs for sewing machines because we had some tapestry things made.
Mm-hmm.
The telephone company gave us some telephone poles for what we used to have out here, the telephone pole sculpture by Kit Carson, who was not allowed to go here in the beginning of school because his hair was too long. But it's another story.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that proved to be a vital part of the college atmosphere and aesthetic, I think. And then, of course, Dick Markson installed a lot of student sculpture around campus. So that's outside the classroom. To me, the classroom is the place where you teach a skill and get the excitement, and then you got to have this other stuff for it to come alive and bear fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. Did technology have any kind of impact on the art classes while you were here?
You know, I mentioned the distant delivery program.
Uh-huh.
Well, I taught drawing all over northern Arizona, attached to my Prescott campus class. Excuse me, through distant delivery. My dad had taken a correspondence course in drawing, and I thought, you know, and there's a time when the art program kind of mellowed out a little bit. And so you'd have two people show up in Baghdad, or 3 over in Verde, or 4 up in Flagstaff when we were in Coconino County, and they'd have to cancel the classes. So by tying them into our campus through distant delivery, they would have allowed the course go. And then we had some people even from the Verde that came over and finished up their work over here. So how I did that, and that's why I have so many video demonstrations of art techniques and what have you, is that we'd make a package of a manual on drawing, slides of student work examples. And I'd take every project, I'd take tons of student examples so they wouldn't have to start from zero. And I was always afraid, you know, it might overstimulate or they might copy, but usually it just triggered all kinds of ideas from other students' slides. And it also gave students an idea, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Because there was really a perfection in drawing that developed. And so we'd have these video demonstrations that I did. We could talk to each other. We had slide examples. They could, by a courier, bring their drawings in, and I'd take tracing paper over the top and do some corrections and send it back.
Wow.
And so that lasted for a while. I taught art appreciation with the interactive TV with the Verde and our campus here, where simultaneously they're there and we're here, and we can see each other and talk to each other and stuff like that. And it, you know, I think it really changed the graphic design program with computer-generated imagery. And then it connected all of us to the internet as far as, you know, available research. And Glenn Peterson still teaches a color class on internet. So, you know, technology was our friend. It was not something we avoided.
Well, that's pretty exciting to think that you could take your teaching outside of a set 4 walls and go, like you were saying, to Flagstaff and all these other locations.
During the semester, I would go up to Flag and then distant deliver back. Each student had a mic. We couldn't see them, unfortunately, but you know, if they had some questions, and then each class would show a video demonstration, and then I'd do a live demonstration and go do another live demonstration. And so it wasn't the best thing, but you know, there's a gal in Flagstaff that after that she was in an art show or 2 up there, like say some of the students on the Verde, before they were able to really get a strong, viable program of their own, was able to come over here. And you know, I did a Channel 13 drawing class. The thing that's amazing is sometimes a spin-off. You get people at home, they'd never walk into this campus. They're scared to death. And so they could sit at home, and I'd be doing these demonstrations, and some of those tapes were kept. and they could call in if they had questions, which usually they were too shy to do. But then the next semester, here they'd be on campus taking a class from, they said, hey, maybe I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a lot of fun, and that's kind of back in the Pete Vanderbloom and Tommy Thomas and Wayne Newton days. When, in fact, when I taught the art appreciation class, interactive video, this is the kind of guy Wayne Newton was. Unfortunately, we lost him to NAU. But I was going to a conference at San Francisco. And on the way back, I was going to be at LAX the same time my class was operating. So I get on the phone. He patches me in my class.
Wow.
And so here I'm teaching my class, sitting on my suitcase at LAX. And the funny thing, one student drew this little picture of me, sitting on my suitcase and a phone, teaching class, and turned that in. And but it just, that was part of the thrill and excitement of being around here. Is those kind of people were here to make things happen.
Uh-huh.
And nothing was impossible. We had an outstanding, internationally known ceramic artist do a big old ceramic display thing in the performance hall, and there's people that made that happen. A guy, I'm trying to think of his name, that was kind of involved in the reproduction process, Randy Powell. He said, hey, we can do this. Got tarps, do all this stuff. Usually you don't want to touch the floor of a theater, right, or a performance art center because it's precious. And so he knew that, but he said we can do this. And so he had clay flags going up and all kinds of stuff. This guy, my memory. I think I just said his name, but anyway. But he'll come to me and I'll bring it back. But it's just those kind of things. My 30 years here, just a lot of fun. And they're out of the classroom. They're using different kinds of technology. They're using people, and just anything you wanted to do, and you could imagine, you could do it because you had people to make it happen. So that was really part of my thrill, and was blessed with those kind of people.
That sounds great. Is there anything that you would have liked to have changed about the college?
Well, yes.
Okay, spill the beans.
I really think there was a damaging effect of the administration versus faculty power struggles, and through faculty associations and things like that. And fortunately, I stayed out of that stuff for my own mental health. But I think it kept some administrators from really doing things. And when other administrators went ahead with things, it seemed like they lost their job. They cost their job. Either go slow enough or whatever. Dr. Barnes, it's interesting, it's alleged that he lost his job because he went over the board's head and changed the college bus. If you could understand that. I guess it's budgeting and things like that. But that bus was not only used by athletic teams, but the fine arts trips to L.A., and we used it a lot. At the Phoenix Art Museum, Jim Burns used to be our driver. He was a frustrated truck driver from back hay hauling days out of Yuma, I think. And then Dr. Walker was the only president who really got the Community Performance Arts Center going, even though an auditorium actually was scheduled for 5 years into this college. It was supposed to be over here on this hill. Nobody had the guts to take that on.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed to cost him his job. And the community college, I think, because of that, has prospered an awful lot. And our art department's has prospered, the community's prospered with the performance hall and the things that have been able to come in there, the plays and activities. We were able to get some good art classrooms the first time of our tenure here that were actually art design. That's when photography was developed, printmaking was developed in a much better state. And then Dr. Daly, I don't know all the political things behind the scenes, but seemed to have lost her job with all the current improvements. But yet the art department prospered with a new building for ceramics and jewelry. And so it's almost like these people that were gutsy enough to stick their head out actually put the art department from being a stepchild in all these little inconvenient, non-functional spaces into spaces that were actually designed for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the tragedy, I think, of those tug of wars. And we still got Building 5, even though that was supposed to have been a bus barn and a maintenance shed. If I can be so bold, I don't know if I ought to go here or not, but I was the only faculty member that actually didn't vote against Dr. Walker, that confidence vote or whatever they do.
Yeah, no confidence vote.
There's only one faculty member that didn't do that, and that was me, because look what he did for me, really. And for the music department. I can't understand where these people were. But it's the politics and things like that. So to me, if something could have changed, it would be that mentality that I think,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of itself, things happened, but some people were wounded and hurt, I think, in the process. So that would be my 2 bits worth on what I would like to have changed. But prior to that, the art department was moved all over the place, and off campus, on campus, over Rush Street, and so it put us on the map. So why would I argue against these people doing what they did? But they got hurt. So that's my what I'd like to have changed, I think, in some way.
Okay, well, that's a good one to like to have changed. Well, you've done so many things here. You've taught so many classes, had so many different positions. Out of all of these, what accomplishments bring you the most pride?
Well, let me see here. Okay. Well, I really think, and this hasn't anything to do with major accomplishments, I think, but I think one of the greatest pleasures that I've received, and this is part of the joy, I guess, of teaching, is seeing students gain confidence in themselves when they could accomplish things they never dreamed they could do it. And a lot of students in ceramics and drawing, and of course, watercolor. Often I got students from Elaine Farrar. I kind of inherited the watercolor program. So I didn't get on the entry of that as much as I did in ceramics and drawing. But as far as, really getting, I don't know if it's pride or just a joy, I would call it more than pride, of just seeing what people can do. And that followed me from high school. I would never, I used to put on art shows at the high school level, and the high school kids would do it. And that's a whole other story, where it grew from a dark, dingy space in the front of a WPA auditorium to the girls' gym to a whole big part of the cafeteria. And students did it. I didn't do it. I couldn't do it. I just physically couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And we'd go over to a nursery. They'd give us plants, bricks, stuff to build it. We'd get props from out of the theater. So the biggest joy, as far as any kind of accomplishments, all through my career of teaching at 36 years, is just being able to see people do stuff, and have that stuff be really exciting and outstanding, and for them to almost go, whoa, it's almost the same thing that happens when I do artwork. I just get through and I go, oh, I can't believe I did that. It's just a real joy and then to be able to handpick the 5 full-time faculty members and to see what they were able to do is another great joy. And so I've been really blessed being able to find those people. They were here. Dick Markison was actually over at Orm School doing some workshops, and he was art coordinator for the entire Orange County, so that's maybe why he didn't mind coming here to get out of that hugeness of that. But Pat Clark, a gal I taught with, she was at the junior high when I was at the high school and went on to university levels. He said, boy, if you can get this guy, you really get a plum. And so I was able to get him, and the rest is history. Amazing guy, what he did for Yavapai College. So those would be my joys, things that were accomplished.
Those sounds like good ones. So I know that you are a practicing artist.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your favorite medium to work in?
Well, currently, of course, it's ceramics because my wife took ceramics from me, I think, for about 4 semesters or more. But so we've got a studio and we work together. But I really love oil pastels, and part of that came from when R.C. Gorman did a workshop here, and he used Prismacolor pencils and oil pastels. And since I'm kind of a not Prismacolor, but oil grease pencil kind of things, and oil pastels, China markers is what they're called. It just worked for me. And then Prismacolor pencils I love, and of course watercolor. I like anything that you build and layer and build. And you can do that with pastels, and you can do it with Prismacolor pencils, and the underneath kind of shows through. Oils, it kind of opaques out too much. In watercolor, you do glazes and glazes, and of course ceramics isn't in that medium, but I just love the sensuousness of clay and the spontaneity of it, and the very tactile parts of clay, and the beauty and poetry of the wheel and the spinning motion and all that good stuff. And recently I've been working in porcelain because it's white, and I can show you some things.
Yeah, you brought some beautiful pieces with you.
Porcelain gives me a chance to draw, which I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I use pencil and eraser in the beginning, and that way I can work out all the bugs. And when you're on a curved surface, you have to do a little bit of adjusting visually, because if it's flat, if you flatten this out, it won't look as good. You know, most people don't understand that. They think it should work either way. And so I worked it out with pencil and eraser, and then the graphite pencils burn away. So then I soften that line, I spray it with workable fixity, and then I go over it with underglazed pencils.
Oh.
And I do that also in the designs. I love designs. And so these are actually the same colors. The brown, the black. I don't know if this got black, but it has the green and the blue. And so you can go realistically, you can go design. And this, I'm kind of a design-based guy anyway, and so I can just sit down and do these. These a little harder work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also enjoy working with 2 walls. I enter, open up, enter a second time, then I pull this up, and I bring the second wall up, and then I carve through this. So I don't know anybody that draws on ceramics realistically. A lot of people have used underglazed pencils, because people usually do drawings, they'll do flat work. And people do go into clay, sometimes they can't draw hardly at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy drawing. This was actually from a quarter-horse ranch over in Springerville. And I spent, I don't know how many hours watching all these little newborn colts run around and scratch each other. Use their mother's tail to keep the flies off, because their tails hadn't developed. It's like a little rope. I don't know if you've been around newborn horses or not, but they're a lot of fun to watch. So I've done ships, I've done old cars, I've done race cars, I've done commissions with drawings, and so that's been a lot of fun. And then,
so Ed, on this piece in your hand, do you have to let the clay dry a little bit before you can start carving?
There's 3 stages. You know, you have your wet, and then you have your leather hard, and that's in the greenware stage before it's fired the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So when this becomes firm, but it's got all of its damp color, then you can take an X-Acto knife or whatever and work this out.
That's beautiful.
And then you fire it, and then in this case I just did a clear glaze over it. But I don't know anybody that's doing these 2 things, so that's my little niche. And then I enjoy color. Actually, my wife and I, we use a lot of the glazes that we developed at the college, and of course they're using, I think, a whole different palette of colors now on campus, but we mix our own glazes, and we purchase our clay from Marjans, and this is a couple of glazes that I like. This is called a Eggshell Turquoise and California Red by name, but I like what they do together, and some of the dark splashes. And it almost has a little oriental feel to it, with accidentally kind of the old Bauhaus style of just pouring things, and what happens hopefully is okay with a little control.
That's a very nice combination of colors there.
Yeah, we do quite a few of these because I just love it's almost like the Japanese, they talk about the whole universe within the glaze, because you have little specks and things going on. It's just really wonderful, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I've been doing in my time away from the college. I sometimes wonder, a lot of people say, well, you think, I don't have time to work. But, and we participate in the exhibits, jury exhibits, Prescott Fine Arts, Mountain Arts Guild, West Valley Art Museum, Sun City. We also participate in the Prescott Area Arts and Humanities Open Studio. And so with art, family, home repairs and keep up,
Mm-hmm.
our church activities, I keep pleasantly busy.
That sounds great. Well, I'm sure there's things we missed just because you've had such a illustrious career here. Is there anything that you want to talk about that I didn't ask you about?
Well, for sure, my 30 years at Yavapai College was filled with a lot of exciting and challenging adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's part of the thrill of the whole time that I've had here, is it's never been, it's never had an opportunity to be boring, mainly because of other people, that made things happen. And so a lot of these I've already mentioned, but a few more might be that I taught college classes at Mayer High School. I used to kid Mary Ann Bamrick because she taught at Mayer High School. I said, well, if she can come out of there, and I thought I had a lot of respect for her. Well, maybe something happened to me, but that was just a little thing between her and me. But students were able to do college or high school credit. For sure, they did the high school credit, and of course, there was a mandate for teaching high school, and some of the high schools couldn't afford to have a teacher, so we were doing this little cooperative thing. And not many of them got college credit, but they at least got the high school credit.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to create a video of Japanese ceramics. There's like 6 major ceramic centers in Japan. Ceramics in Japan is huge. They have, the ceramic artists would be called national treasures. And so I was able to stay with a Japanese potter there, Yuko Yamamoto, and he came here and did some workshops for us, and that was kind of through Don Bendel and NAU cooperating with me in that area. And then I was also developed a video on Japanese architecture while I was on sabbatical. And so this was actually edited and finalized with the help of Pete Vanderboom. And those are here in the library for people to access if they want that history and that information. I was on the Speaker Bureau and gave lectures to the Phoenix Art Museum docents, Phoenix Art Museum, also to local docents, and I ran across a little publications where there's some other groups that I gave talks to. Took many grade school kids and college students to the art gallery exhibits. So that was another reason for the importance of the art gallery. So I actually have had quite a time here, and I'd probably still be here, except I needed some time to do my own work, and getting along the years, I figured, well, I didn't make them have been. But I guess another blessing, I guess you could say, is every moment and every year here was really a joy. And of course, it's always nice to be able to leave, and people don't want you to leave. But sometimes you have to make that break. I also retired from the military. I had 4 years active Navy, 8 years Naval Reserve. I had a year in inactive Naval Reserve, and when I came to Prescott, I was 17 years in the Arizona Army National Guard, and I was able to retire as a Chief Warrant Officer in that area. So basically, I had a couple of careers that I was doing while I was here. And so there's probably other things, but that's maybe a highlight, and this has been a joy for me to be able to share in my experiences so they just don't kind of die and evaporate, but other people can come back and say, wow, I didn't realize that what it's like to take something from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can come in and you can enjoy what these folks made.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, a thing that's kind of neat too, as I come back on campus, the teachers that replaced us, in every case that I can see, have actually taken it to another level. And so that's been a thrill, because you hate to turn something over and it deteriorates or falls apart. It seems like that hasn't happened here.
No, I agree. What I see from the art department is just as exciting as it always
They
has
just were able to
been.
walk in and then go from there, rather than say, well, got it made, I guess. So it's kind of nice to have that legacy and also leave a legacy in the hands of other people that take the ball and keep rolling with it. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in and spending some time telling me, what it's been like for you starting the art program. I appreciate you bringing in your ceramic pieces today too. It's been a thrill to see them.
You got to have visual displays, right?
Oh yeah, didn't think of that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming in.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me come in, and thank you for doing this project.
Oh, you're welcome.